Hi guys, welcome to the second episode of Logical Reasoning. In our previous episode, we discussed a few alphabet problems and we're going to continue doing the same for this video. So let's get started. Hey guys, how are you today? Well, as discussed, we're going to be solving more of alphabet logical reasoning questions in this episode. So shall we start? The question here is, 4 of the following 5 are alike in a certain way and so form a group. Which is the one that does not belong to the group? So most of the questions that we're going to be discussing and the questions that are asked in the exams are about finding the odd one out. The options for the same I'll just write down on the board. First is LOJ, FID, RUP, ILN, CFA. Alright, so all the questions that we discussed in our previous episodes had options which were, in every group there was two letters, and we never discussed a combination of 3 letters or more. So this might be a little tricky, so listen closely. We've got LOJ. Now, as I started in our previous episode, in our first episode, always write down or make this particular chart from A to Z, from 1 to 26, right? Let's get started, okay? So first, in this particular series, whenever you have got 3 different letters that you're going to be seeing, you always see whether the letters come before or after each other. So you've got L, O comes after L, and J comes before O and L. This is how I see it. So as I always say that whenever you are solving a lot of questions, these patterns become more visible to you. So as you go on solving more questions, these patterns will start making sense, right? So when I see this particular option, what I can see is O comes after L and J comes before L. So always compare it with one letter, right? Mostly it's the beginning letter. It could be O that you're comparing it with or anything else. So let's compare it with L, right? So let's start with L, O and J. So between L and O, there's a difference between 2 letters and O comes after L. And between J and L, there's a difference between 1 letter and J comes before L. So we have kind of established it that, difference plus 2, and here is the difference minus 1. I mean, you can write it in any kind of code you want to. I mean, this works for me, so I've written in. And always we are supposed to be comparing more than 2 patterns. So always compare 3 patterns. So let's go forward. Let's see if all of these follow the same rule. Then we have FID. Okay, so F, I and D. F and I have got 2 letters between them, and D again, which comes before F, has got 1 letter between them. So again, this follows the rule F plus 2 minus 1. Let's check for IUP. R, U and P. It again follows the same, right? R plus 2 difference from R to U and minus 1 difference from R to P. So you write it plus 2, I'm really sorry, plus 2 and minus 1. Then we go to ILN. So now that we've established that 3 of these groups follow the same kind of a pattern, it gets easier to believe that this might be the final pattern, but we need to check for all the groups. So let's go for ILN. So we've got an I, we've got an L and we've got an N. This looks like the odd one out. Why? Because the second letter in the group comes after I, no doubt, but the third letter in the group does not come before I. So there is no difference of minus 1, but there's a difference of plus 4. And here it's plus 2. Let's check for CFA. Got C, F and A. Again following the same rule, plus 2 and minus 1. Which one is the odd one out? Apparently ILN. problem solved. So let's continue with our journey and solve a bit more of questions. There are these 3 questions that caught my eye, which have been asked in Allahabad Bank PO examination. I've written down the options and I'll read down the question. They are all having the same heading. So the question goes something like, 4 of the following 5 are alike in a certain way and hence form a group. Which is the one that does not belong to that group? And in the bracket there's written, these questions are based upon English alphabetical series, which means it's based upon this. So let's get started. The first question, again you have to find the odd one out. So there's KP, BY, DW, HU, GT. So in all of my all of the questions that I've solved till now, I've always begun with option 1, but that's not necessary. You can start with option 2, start with option 3, and once you start getting familiar with these patterns, you'll be able to identify or guess which option you should explore first. So that will happen eventually. We today will start with BY. We're going to anyway see 3 patterns. So let's go with 2, 3 and 4. So let's get started with BY. In all of these options, you can see one single pattern, which is this comes first, this comes next in the alphabetical series. It's true for all, so that's not something that we need to be concerned about. I'll use a different color pen to differ the solution from the problem. So let's get started with BY, right? B and Y. Look at it closely and try to identify. In one of our questions in the previous episodes, we talked about how position of the element from the beginning and from the end also matters, and we also discussed the formula, if you remember. 26 minus the position n of the element plus 1 is the final position of the element from the back, from the end. So let's see, 2 is 1, 2. Y is this, which is 26 minus 25 equals to 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. So 2 and 2, which means both of them have the same position from the beginning, from the end. So for BY we have identified that pattern. Let's explore the same for D and W. D is the 4th element. W is 23, so it is 26 minus 23 plus 1, which is again 4. No, which is not 4. I'm really sorry. I think I got... Yeah, it is 4. It is 4. I'm sorry. So DW also follows the same pattern. Then there's H and U. So you've got 8 from here, and then you calculate for U. So it's 26 minus 21, which is equal to 5, plus 1, which is equal to 6, which is not the same as 8, which means this part from the beginning is not equal to the position of U from the back. Now we have explored 3 groups in which 2 of them follow the same. So this gives us a hint that this should be the odd one out, but as always we are going to be checking 5 and 1 as well. So let's do that. G and T. G is 7, T is 26 minus 20 plus 1, which is again 7, which gives us the correct option here. K and P. K is 11, P is 26 minus 16 plus 1, which is also equal to 11, which means all of these options follow the same rule except for H and U. That's the odd one out, and you've got your answer. Well, this one was one of those questions that people don't usually solve that much. These kind of questions are not exactly taught all the time, but you need to remember that there could be another way of doing it, maybe, but always remember this particular formula, because we don't want to be repeating this stupid mistake, right? Always add plus 1. Let's get on to our next question. I'll just rub this. So in our next questions, we are going to be talking about again the position of the elements of the letters in the alphabet. In the last question that we solved before this, that is, we were concerned with 3 letters. Here we have, in both of the questions, we have got 4 letters. So we're going to follow the same way, same approach, J, L and K, right? let me highlight them so that we're going to be starting from the first element again. J, L, N and K. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's the position of J, L and K. Let's also compare with T, V, X, U. Let's just note it all down first only. T, V, X and U. 4. Yeah. So here, as you can see, from first element to the second element, it's plus 1. Or you could say plus 2. I mean, there's a difference of 1, but we could say plus 2. 1, 2. And there's 1, 2. So you could again say plus 2. And whenever you go here, there's a minus 3. So the formula could be n plus 2 minus 3. And that's the whole series. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is one of the notations that I use to understand the position of the elements whenever it gets complex, because you can't just remember all the positions properly, right? J ke baad, you have plus 2 or there's a difference between the two. It's always better to write a formula down. So we have n plus 2 minus 3. So now let's compare all of the elements according to this particular form. So in the first question in this particular episode, we talked about more than 2 letters in a particular group. And we discussed how you can solve for 3 letters in a particular group. This one has got 4. So let's look after that. Whenever we were doing that, we were concerned with the positions, right? So let's get started with ACEB, because whenever I say A, B, C, D or something of that sort, it actually catches my eye very quickly. You just select these options based on your guesses or based on the kind of experience you've gathered over days after you practice. So I'll go with the third. So it's A. I'll write number 1 here. Then there's C, which is number 2. Then there's E, which is number 3. And then there's B, which is number 4. So as I've also discussed in this one, you always need to establish a common way of solving, right? You have to establish a way these particular patterns are existing in these questions. So always better to write a formula. So let's say I'm going from A to C, which is the second element. I'll write plus 2. When I'm going from C to E, I'm again writing plus 2, 1, 2, plus 2. And when I'm going from E to 4, which is B, I mean third to 4, E to B, it is minus 3. So I got this particular formula from here. N plus 2 minus 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. First element, second element, third element, fourth element. Now that I have this formula, I can compare all the other options with that. So if we have done this, now let's solve for P, R, T, Q. So let's go P, R, T and Q. 1, 2, P, R, T and Q. Okay, so here we have again got P plus 2, which is R plus 2, which is T, and T minus 3, which is Q. So it is following this particular pattern. So we have established 2 elements that follow that particular pattern and are abiding by that formula. Then we have got G, J, K and H. Let's check for that. G, J, K and H. Now look closely, okay. G to J. This is anyway contradicting the formula. G to J is plus 3, not plus 2. So this doesn't go with the formula. We won't even check later on. I mean, we won't check the other elements. This doesn't abide by the formula. Let's check for other two. J, L and K. Okay. J, L, N and K. Plus 2 minus 3. Done. Great. Then there's T, V, X, U. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 2 minus 3. Great. So all 4 of these all 4 of these options follow the same rule. Fifth one doesn't. So it's the odd one out apparently. And yeah, you've got your answer. Although there could be some other ways. I know a person who told me another way of solving this. So it's basically, you look at this, right? So you say A, B, C, D, E. So there's a D missing. There's one element that's missing. It's like in a series, right? You see. It's a series in which you don't include this one particular element. So you check it that way, and then you are like, and then you'll be checking this, let's say T U X. So this is the last question of this particular episode, and we're going to be following the same approach as we followed in this particular question, the last one, but we are going to be focusing more on identifying patterns rather than solving it by a formula, although we'll start with the formula itself. So let's pick out let's say 3. I'm going to be solving this first. So KMNL. So we have got 1, 2, 3 and 4. It's pretty cool, right? So you don't even have to write a formula for this. You can just see it straight away. K, and then you skip a letter, M, N, and then you come back. It's just like how you practice strumming of the guitar if you are familiar with it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, in which you just 1, 3, 4, 2. Let's just say there's a pattern 1, 3, 4, 2 or something of that sort. So this is very easily understandable pattern, so we won't write a formula for this because it would just consume a lot of time. So 3, and then you've got U, W, X, T. So U, W, X and T. You don't have a T here, so that's gone. C, E, F, B. Here you've got, I mean, this is a different kind of a thing. So this is different and this is different. We need to remember that. Always comparing 3 patterns, because if these 2 are different, we'll be able to see which one does this match to. C, E, F, B. C, you skip a letter F, E, and then F, and then come back to D. So this follows the same pattern as K, M, N, L. And yeah, I think we found our pattern, which is skip an element and then the next element in the series, and then you come back. So let's check for the other 2. G, I, J, F. G, I, J, H.
Rolling.
So let's continue and solve for G, I, J, F also, because we have identified a pattern, right? But we haven't established that this is the right way to do it, or this would be a pattern that all the groups would follow. So let's check it for this one also. G, I, J, F. Okay. So there we've got G, we've got I, and we've got J, and then we've got F. So it doesn't, right? You skip an element, I and J, and then it should be H. So it is not H, it is F, which means we have got 3 different patterns that are being followed in this question. So we can't actually say that, this one is the odd one out, or we can't decide. So now what should be our next approach? As I said, that these formulae should be the first thing that you look at, but then try to establish a few patterns yourself. So the pattern that I can see here is these center elements are in a series everywhere. After I comes J, after Q comes R, M, N, W, X, then there's E and F. So these are in series. That's obvious. So these are going to be same in all the groups. What another pattern have I observed here is after G as the first element, there's F as the last element. And always if you see here, F comes before G, right? And then O, and we have got O and we have got N. There's O as the first element, N comes before O. So first element and the last element comes before it. Although when you see it here, K and L, L comes after K. So this is the odd one out for now. Let's check for others. U and T. U comes for, T comes after U. Then you've got C, and then B comes after C. So for all these, we have established, and for this particular group, where K is the first element and L is the last element and L comes after K, you got the odd one out. So you always have to identify the right patterns. Try to look for them. I'll keep repeating the whole idea that as you keep solving more and more questions, you will be able to guess better. You'll be able to look at a particular question and be able to guess that this should be the odd one out. Keep practicing. I mean, similar questions maybe create on your own. These were the ones that were being asked in Allahabad Bank PU exam. You can go and look for similar questions and keep solving, because somewhere in your subconscious you need that pattern matching skill, or that pattern matching idea, or an approach that just comes, an insight that comes in you as you go forward. So yeah, these are the questions for this episode, and we'll continue. So those were the 4 important problems for bank PO logical reasoning for alphabet. We are going to be discussing more of such problems, more such problems in our next episode. And if you've got any of the interesting questions that you want to be discussed, or any topics that you want to be covered by us, please mention it in the comments below. And also there are a few PDFs that you can download for question practice for logical reasoning. For that, you can find the link in the description, and do not forget to share, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.